John. And welcome into Press Box Live. And we remind you that it's brought to you each and every Monday night and Wednesday night by C3 American Exteriors. Go to their website at c3america.com to get a brand new roof for just the cost of your insurance deductible. And as I like to say on this, Ross, there is no greater expenditure that you will have on your house when you own your house.
Right.
Taking care of your roof is the most important thing. These guys at C3 America, I know them, I trust them, I like them, and I think you will too. They have been called Master Elite status by GAF Roofing. That's the company that supplies all the supplies. It says that C3 American Exteriors, their crews are Master Elite status. So go to c3america.com now to get a free roof inspection. Joining me is Ross Grimsley, and usually there's a third block here, but technical difficulties, Boog. Ross, we were supposed to have Boog Powell with us from Key
Right.
West, Florida, and he tried like he did, but for some reason he couldn't get into our thing. So we're just like a pregame show tonight.
I hear you. I hear you. He might have been out on his boat fishing. Maybe that could have been the reason. He just didn't want to let us know.
All right,
Make
that's
us
quite
jealous.
possible. That's quite possible.
Yeah.
Hey, Ross, before we talk about the current state of the Orioles, any team that has what happened last Wednesday in Seattle, that's pretty exciting stuff. How many no-hitters in your career have you been a part of, either flirting with one yourself, a
Right.
teammate, or you had one thrown at you? And in any shape, way, shape, or form, it's pretty special, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. And I tell you, even if you're watching a guy on the other team have a no-hitter and you're kind of pulling for him,
Right.
but because you just don't see it that often, that's quite a feat. And I like you asked, I never had one. I pitched a two-hitter against the Pirates in the 72 playoffs is the closest I got. Roberto Clemente got both hits, and one of them was a home
So you
run.
pitched a no-hitter against the Roberto Clemente list Pirates.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But watching a no-hitter, I know I saw Kenny Holtzman pitch one
Right.
against the Reds in 71. And before that, Rick Wise beat me. I think the game was 4-0. He pitched a no-hitter and hit a home run off of me. And later on in the game, he had a home run off of Clay Carroll. So that was quite a day for him, a no-hitter, 2 home runs.
I remember it wasn't a no-hitter, but I remember folklore in Baltimore was one time Milt Pappas was having so much trouble beating the Yankees. He said, I'm just going to have to go out there and hit a home run and pitch a shutout. And I was talking to Boog Powell earlier today. He said he went out and hit a home run and pitched a shutout
right.
against Whitey Ford.
Wow. Ford. He knew what he had to do.
Yep. Yep.
But I tell you, the other no-hitter was against Nolan Ryan, pitched against me 1-0. I think that was in Anaheim. But, I mean, to watch him, a no-hitter, and, sometimes you don't even know that's going on. You look up, it's the 6th, 7th, 8th inning, and you see there's zeros on the board. You go, oh, my goodness. And then it starts getting a little excited. And, when somebody on the bench, everybody's avoiding the pitcher and not saying anything. And everybody knows.
Well, in the press box, we know a little sooner because somebody like Peter Schmuck, my friend, who retired Sun writer, who's a little bit of a degenerate gambler. Degenerate's too strong a word, but he always looks up and goes, "Hey, anybody want to do a no-hitter pool?" And you draw you draw 9 numbers out of 0, 1, 2, 3. And whoever gets the no-hitter broken, you put in $10 a piece and you got like $100 in there.
Okay. It sounds like Mexico. They bet on anything, balls and strikes
exactly right.
And whatever.
That's exactly right.
But no-hitter special.
This no-hitter, some say it might be one of the greatest all time. 26 out of the 27 batters had had strike one thrown to
First
them.
pitch strikes. That's, I mean, watching him pitch, I mean, I didn't even realize it was a no-hitter until toward, I think, the 8th inning. And then it just something, just listening to the game and listening to some people and watching stuff. And I'm going, there's, this is more than a shutout. And sure as the world, it was a no-hitter. And I knew something in the 9th inning was a little bit different. But yeah, it's to see him, it's a perfect, is what was preached when I first got into baseball. And I'm sure, several people before me, that, you get ahead in the count, you establish your fastball, you establish the inside part of the plate, which he did. And he didn't have he didn't have his changeup until later on in the game.
Right.
And that just made, so to see him get through the game and make the adjustment and be able to use his changeup in situations where it didn't hurt him early, and then he finally got the feel for it. This guy's for real right now. Now, how long will it last? Hopefully, the rest of the season in his career. But, he just, right now, he's the real deal. And he's the guy that goes out that's going to stop the streaks, the losing streaks. You can depend on him to keep you in the game and give you a chance to win. And that's what you really need.
I asked Brandon Hyde at today's video press conference, I said, in the 3 years you've managed this team now, your teams, to me, they have a hallmark of playing hard for their manager. They don't quit in late innings. They've been undermanned in year one, especially. That pitching staff in year one was just beyond the worst I've ever seen.
Right.
I said, does your team now, it's hard to measure them with wins and losses, but do they feel more confident each and every day that they can win a game? And he thought about it a second. He goes, yeah, I think they do. And it's because of the pitching throughout the entire staff.
Sure.
My question for you is, you were never the ace on a staff, or maybe you were in Montreal, but you've always been the second or third guy,
right?
Maybe fourth guy. What's it like? What's it do to the psyche of a club to have a Jim Palmer, a Tom Seaver, a DeGrom, a Scherzer? And it's a little early to say Means is in that class,
right?
But he clearly is a guy that they feel when he goes out, they got a hell of a chance to win.
Well, he's in that class right now.
Yeah.
Now, get that change, and everybody, that has the super years, you are usually the best pitcher, for the month, 2 months, or for the whole season, and the whole deal is to be consistent and do it year in and year out, and you look at, I was just looking, we're going to have Boog on the show tonight, and I have some questions I wanted to ask him from 1964 to 64 to 71. These guys, 7 out of the 8 years, they won 90 plus games.
Yeah.
And 3 of the years they won over 100, and they had some pretty good pitchers. And then the years after that, the guys run out some numbers, big win numbers, and all pitching and defense. That was a big thing. I know when I was here in 74, Cuellar, McNally, Palmer, and myself, and I happened to have probably the best year of my career, even though I was 18 and 13, but I did a lot of things.
Your pitching coach here was George Bamberger.
Bamberger, yes.
Yeah.
But I tell you, and I was on a show the other night, and I think I told you about it. In my 50th year anniversary, my first big league game is coming up, and I was on the show, and they had a guy that was sitting behind home.
What were you, 5 or 6 years old when you made your debut?
Yeah. But anyway, they had a guy on the phone that was sitting behind home plate, and his name was Johnny. Well, it turned out it was Johnny Bench. I hadn't talked to Bench in years. And so we were going back over that, and just talking about things. But getting back to the Orioles, the pitching has been such a mainstay over the years. I mean, the 70s, was the Reds and the Orioles were the 2 winningest teams in Major League Baseball in that. And basically the Orioles did it with pitching, and always you got usually 2 guys or 3 guys on a staff that you can depend on, and now that you got John Means, who right now is a guy, like you said, he goes out now people expect him to go out and keep you in the game. I'll tell you, one of the greatest 500 pitchers are that Steve Rogers from the Expos, 158 and 152. Everybody knew that he was going to go out. The game was going to be 2-1, 3-2, 1-0. And, he just didn't get any runs, but he was one of the greatest 500 pitchers, basically, I've ever seen.
All time. Yeah.
Great guy, great pitcher. He just on a team that didn't score a lot of runs. And, but he went out, and the team knew that it was going to be a close game, that they were going to be in the game, just a matter of getting some runs. And when you got a pitcher, when you got 3 or 4 pitchers like that, those are the teams that go to the World Series.
So I'm going to leave. The Orioles are not going to the World Series this year unless they go and pay for tickets. But all kidding aside, let's leave Matt Harvey on the side for a second. We'll get to him. Dean Kramer, these last 2 games, he still hasn't won, but he's kept his team in the game for 5 innings. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right.
You don't suddenly become an established major league pitcher overnight. But I've liked his sort of mentality. He's been much more aggressive on the mound to me. Your assessment.
He's a guy. Last year we saw him, and many people that saw him really made comments about him. This guy, out of all the young pitchers they saw, they liked him the most because he had 4 quality pitches. He was around the plate. He threw strikes. It looks like this year he's trying to throw harder. And we know what happened to Means when he tried that. He was not the same pitcher. And he didn't have the command. He overthrew his changeup. None of his pitches were as effective as they were when he tried to stay within himself and pitch to the effort that he could control the ball. And I think Kramer's the same way. He's got 4 quality pitches, but he just gets just a little out of whack. You see him miss up and away a lot, and just trying to throw the ball harder than he needs to try to throw it. And that's what people do now, but he's a guy that he can't pitch it. He's got plenty of stuff when he doesn't try to do it, and he can locate it and command it. But here's a guy, again, he's just going to have to figure it out, because he has some good games. He has some not so good games, but it's a learning thing. And the league is going to adjust to these guys, and they're going to have to adjust, and we're going to see that. That's what's going to make the difference for these guys. They're adjusting and readjusting as the season and their careers go
on. The left-hander Bruce Zimmerman, we saw what sort of happened. He had a great spring where he sort of came. I won't say he came out of nowhere, but I think the odds of him making the team at the start of spring training weren't very good. But then Hernandez got hurt, and a couple other things happened, and suddenly he was pitching as good as anybody.
Right.
Comes up. He had a couple good starts. He's not going to overwhelm you with his stuff, but he looked like he was a serviceable major league starting pitcher. What do you think happened to him? And can he go back down to Norfolk and put this thing back together?
Yeah, well, it's spring training, and I know Scotty McGregor saw him and said, this guy's really been impressive a couple of times. Then we watched a few more games, and he goes, and you just go, this guy has really made an impression. Now, you don't take a lot into spring training, out of spring training. You don't take a lot in September when they call guys up. But, they get their feet wet a little bit. But this guy threw very well in spring training, made the club out of the spring. Now, obviously, the season is a completely different animal.
Yeah.
What happens is now you're going to have to adjust. They're going to adjust to you. You're going to face lineups overall that are better than the spring training guys.
Yeah, they don't have 4 or 5 guys that are just showing up.
Yeah, and that's part of it. But you just he pitched well enough to make the team. But then again, he got his feet wet. He saw what it was like. Now he's going to have to make some adjustments. And watching some of the other left-handed pitchers, not only on his team, but around the league that are successful pitchers, now you go, hey, let's see what he did. Maybe I can do that. I know the greatest lesson I got, and we talked about it the other night, I talked about it with Bench, was coming over to Baltimore from Cincinnati and learning from Cuellar, McNally, Palmer, then watching Catfish, Fergie Jenkins, some of these other great pitchers, and actually being able to talk some of the hitters and the pitchers and kind of pick their brain about certain things they did. You had to do what you did best, but you could get a lot of valuable information from hitters and pitchers. And that's kind of what I think is missing somewhat now, because the guys are so with the analytics. They're not watching probably the game as closely as they want because they got it on a computer and they got the numbers and stuff. So it takes a little bit away from it, and they're not really, a lot of the Hall of Famers of the past and some of the great pitchers, you can learn a lot, but these guys aren't being used and getting that information. So they're missing out a lot, I think.
Right. Now, the other night, the Orioles had another debut of a left-hander, a young left-hander, Zach Lothar, who pitched in 2019, I believe he was at Bowie in 2019, so he did not have a AAA season, and he was at the alternate site this year, and they brought him up. He got an inning in relief, was optioned out to the alternate site, and then they needed a starter, and they brought him up, and he didn't make it out of the second inning against the Red Sox. How deflating is that to you? And what's the best message? Because I bet you had pitchers in the minor leagues that you handled that had gone up to the big leagues, come back down, got their brains beat in. How do you rebuild the psyche of a young pitcher?
You know what? I'll tell you, one of the things with the Giants that we had, and watching the guys and understanding them, and they would call, and we had so many, Dick Tidbrow. We had a lot of pitching people in that organization, and you kind of know, is this guy ready for the big leagues? And I go, yes, he's ready. They didn't want to go, maybe, if this, no, he's ready. He's ready to handle, the situation. And if he gets knocked around, which you don't know, but yet I don't think he will. I think he has enough sense, Bumgarner was a perfect example. And you know what? They kept him down a little bit longer just to make sure, that this guy, we want to make sure that he's ready to go. And I don't really know if they do that to the point where, this guy is ready. He's ready to do that. And a lot of guys come up and I know the first game that I pitched against, I think it was Montreal or the Mets, I forget. And the first hitter was Ron Hunt. He hit a line drive right in my back. So welcome to the big leagues, Grims. But then, at the first game, I think I give up 4 or 5 runs in 3 innings. And the next time,
it's kind of fitting that he would hit you.
Yeah, I know.
Because he's the guy who got hit all the time.
Totally backwards, It's not supposed to work that way.
Right.
But it did. But then the next time I went out and, I think I pitched 6 innings, give up a couple runs, something like that. But it's a learning thing. And the guys that, okay, why did I do poorly? What did I do? And take it the next time. And even when you do well, you go, okay, what did I do to do what I just did? And I know I still got scouting reports on the games I pitched with the Reds, 71, 2 and 3. I still have them in the room, my back room.
God.
And I can look at them and the scouting reports on the pitchers that are the hitters I faced, what they did the next time. So we just kept, kept charts and things, and always relied, listening to the older guys about what they thought. And even during the games, you'd ask, what do you think this guy's going to look for this time up? I hope they do that now, but who knows?
All right, let's talk about the pitcher who's pitching tonight as we're talking live on Facebook Live with Pressbox Live. Jorge Lopez seems to have gotten into a little bit more of attack mode of late. He's got terrific velocity, but the problem with him is he gets to the 5th inning and it's like a speed bump that he can't get his car over or something. It's like a mental thing now.
Who does he remind you of?
You?
But no. But
right harder than that.
Oh, yes. But I'm going back in the 70s. A pitcher with the Orioles. Who does he remind you of?
Nobody's coming to mind right now.
Dennis Martinez. He's very similar to Dennis. One of the problems with Dennis is he would throw all of his pitches at the beginning of the game.
Right.
And
he wouldn't save anything.
Well, no, he was more, he'd show his whole hand
Right.
at the beginning, and he didn't have the command. He'd be 2-2, 3-2 on everybody and have to throw a pitch. He'd be up, down. He'd nibble here, nibble there. Instead of just going here, throw strikes, get ahead. You know, Ray Miller had it the best.
Is this guy as electric as Dennis was?
I think he's got really good stuff. He got good
Right.
breaking ball,
Right.
but again, he just gets to a lot of these guys first a couple times, that third time around, they've never done it. So now what? I mean, there's no cat and mouse game in the game now with the pitcher.
It's like a boxer. It's like a boxer going from a 4-round fight to a 12-round fight.
But really, I mean, you don't know how to, it's go as hard as you can, as long as you can, and that's usually 5 innings. But in the past, and I tell the story. I know that with Bench, Perez, some of the bigger hitters with the Reds, they would make outs early in the game with nobody on. They would take a slider, they'd take a fastball in, or they would take a crappy swing at it. They come back to the bench and I'm going to get that same pitch with guys on base. Just wait and see. And sure as the world, they would give up an out.
Right.
And they would make an out to get a pitch later on in the game.
Get a pitch later in the game.
The pitchers used to do, basically, they would throw a pitch for you to hit early and they'd give you something with men on base later. And it just knowing what, and the thing was, one of the biggest things I want to know, if I have to throw a fastball to a guy, where can I throw it where it'll do the least damage? And a lot of times, that didn't work every time, but it was, that's something that you do. But the cat and mouse game, the checkers, the chess game, you don't see that as much now because guys don't go deep into games. And the ones that do means is that couldn't have been, that was the greatest, that reminded you of guys, in the 60s, 70s,
yesteryear. Yep.
Yeah, changing speeds, throwing inside. So, establishing the fastball, establishing inside, especially left-handed, because you're going to use that outer part of the plate with your fastball and changeup, and then mix in some breaking balls, which he's worked on and improved. That's really good. But yeah, the guys. I mean, Lopez is a guy, a great arm, and I'm not sure how old he is, but he's a guy that reminds me a lot of Dennis Martinez.
That's an interesting. That's an interesting parallel.
I don't know, just the way he throws and his stuff wise, but
yeah,
he gets to the fifth inning, and then something happens, and that's kind of expected.
It's an interesting comp is the word I was looking for to compare. Let's finish up the ball game tonight, by the way, on 105.7 The Fan on the radio, and Scott and Ben McDonald will have the call on Masson tonight, the game at Camden Yards, and then the Orioles go to play the Mets for 2. Then they come back home and have the Yankees for 3 and Tampa Bay for 3 next week. The pitcher I want to close with, though, is the one I said we'd put on the side, and that is Matt Harvey.
Yeah.
I was encouraged by Matt Harvey for 2 or 3, 4 games. This last start, and I don't know, maybe you can help me with it. He seems to have sort of said, hey, I'm not really a power pitcher anymore. I can still on occasion get it up to 95 or 96. But by the second or third inning, he's 92, 93. He's not devastating anybody. But when he gets 2 strikes on a hitter, I watched him in that game the other night against the Red Sox. Christian Vasquez, a good hitter, not a great hitter, a good hitter. He looked like he couldn't figure out what to throw him to close the deal. The guy fouled off like 6 or 7 foul balls, and eventually he just gave in and put a meatball down the middle. That seems to be his problem, is he doesn't have an out pitch. How do you describe what's going on with the evolution of Matt?
Well, again, you look at who they're playing now. They're playing the Red Sox, who started the year off looking really, really bad, and they have, turned the corner and really, improved.
One of the best offensive teams.
I mean, they made adjustments, and that's what, and I know last year with the Orioles toward I think the last 20 games or so of the season, they didn't play too well. They didn't make adjustments. They're a young team. They're going to have to learn to do that to go to the next level, and you're playing, the Yankees are going to be good. The Red Sox are going to be good, but they're always showing that. Tampa Bay, Toronto's a team of the future. But these guys, as the season progresses, the season you break up into thirds.
But getting back to Harvey for a
Yeah,
minute. In other words, the guy you compared Jorge Lopez to Dennis Martinez.
right.
I'm gonna comp him to what he should become is a Frank Tanana type of pitcher now. The way that Tanana had to reinvent himself, and
Yeah.
I don't think Matt has fully understood how to do that. He seems to still be hung up on trying to be the man that depends upon that one pitch.
Yeah. Well,
And
he's
that
got
pitch
that.
is not devastating anymore.
He's got a really, it's been impressive, a breaking ball, that hard
Yep.
slider he's got. And like you said, the fastball, he has to locate the fastball. And all pitchers, if they want to be successful and be consistent, you got to locate your fastball because everything is off of that. And he's a guy, he doesn't use his changeup very much. That's something that's probably going to make a difference for him. And but he's got the big curveball that he throws occasionally, the slider he uses most, and he used a two-seam fastball and a four-seam. And you see these guys, I don't really care how hard you throw or how slow you can throw the ball up. The guys are going to chase it. And
Yeah.
if a lot of times they hit it, if it's high enough, they're going to pop it up or miss it. It's that one that's a little bit lower around your belly button. They're going to tattoo. And that's what guys have got to stay away from. But Harvey's a guy that, I think once the league sees what he's doing, and here's a guy he's going to have to make a change and an adjustment. He's going to have to do some different things as far as maybe mixing some more changeups, pitch inside a little bit. Comes down, you got to command your fastball. That's the bottom line. And he's fallen behind hitters a little bit more than he did earlier. And he has to, and he's got to throw his breaking ball. When you do that and you throw an off-speed pitch, you got to throw it for a strike.
Yeah.
And once you start getting ahead, then they'll
And
start chasing those
he's
pitches
got
out
to
of the
throw
zone.
that in a crisp fashion. Sometimes he hangs those breaking pitches are just up there.
And I think a big reason a lot of guys do that now is they're trying to throw every breaking ball the best one ever.
Right.
And that they'll either hang it or they'll throw it out of the zone and they won't chase it because they're behind in the count. The hitters are starting to, some of the hitters are starting to wise up a little bit, put the ball in play, hit the ball the other way. I've seen more balls hit in the other side of the shift this year for some reason than I've seen in the past. And I think your better hitters especially are starting to do that, and they're getting on base a little bit more. And I think if everybody else did that, you'd see the batting averages increase and more runs scored.
All right. We apologize to our viewers tonight. We were trying to get Boog Powell on with us, and we tried a couple different things. He was having trouble getting connected to us. We'll make that up. Got an ex-Oriole, Jack Voigt, is tentatively scheduled for next week. And we'll probably start Monday night at 8:30 on Monday night. I thank you, Ross Grimsley, for jumping on with us, as always. For Ross Grimsley, I'm Stan the Fan Charles, reminding you that Pressbox Live has been brought to you by C3 American Exteriors. Go to their website at c3america.com to get a brand new roof for just the cost of your insurance deductible. I know these guys. I trust these guys. I like these guys at C3 American Exteriors. They are really good roofers, no doubt about it. Ross, I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, buddy. Will do.
Thank you for watching.